Hello there. So I've been getting a lot of questions about L-carnitine, specifically the oral supplement, and I thought let's just make a video about it rather than answering each person's question individually. I can just point them in the direction of the YouTube video. So Alex Kiekel, the prepcoach.com, he made a fantastic video about this during his L-carnitine seminar. It used to be his ebook where Marek Health pointed people in that direction. The ebook is unfortunately not available anymore, but you can still go and watch the seminar. So I want to break down what the molecule is based on a lot of what Alex taught us on how it works. And then I'm going to talk about the practical application of how you would use the supplement on a day-to-day basis and what my experience of it is and how it has been best working for my patients and for my own bodybuilding journey. The main purpose of L-carnitine is to shuttle fatty acids into the mitochondria. It is synthesized endogenously in the kidneys from lysine and methionine. So what we've got is the outer layer of the mitochondria. I hate it when people say it's the powerhouse of the cell because it does about 10,000 other things that's at least as important. So you've got the long chain fatty acid. It binds to acetyl coenzyme A. This then becomes fatty acetyl coenzyme A. All right. Then we need a transporter to get this across the layer. So this is where carnitine comes in. It then becomes fatty acetyl-carnitine. This acetyl group then peels off, and that is when beta oxidation happens and how fat loss occurs. The L-carnitine is still there, and it needs to be recycled to repeat the process or to convert to acetyl-carnitine, which has various neurological benefits, which we're going to get into. If the carnitine is not recycled, you get localized insulin resistance in that specific area. So it's almost like if you go and train biceps really, really hard, and your carnitine in that specific area isn't recycled, that area is going to take longer to start recovering after training because you have localized insulin resistance in that specific area. So the metabolites of the acetyl groups also build up in the mitochondria. These need to get out. So the whole recycling process is very important. If these acetyl groups aren't, or the metabolites aren't taken out of the mitochondria, you will get mitochondrial dysfunction over time, build up of oxidative stress. We've talked about that quite a bit already. A lot of other people talk about the negative effects of oxidative stress. I'm not going to cover all of that here. Before I talk about L-carnitine's effect on androgen receptors, let's quickly talk about what is a genomic effect and what is a non-genomic effect. For the purposes of this video, all you need to know is a non-genomic effect is usually immediate or within like 5 minutes, and a genomic effect is something that builds up over a couple of months and years. So the non-genomic effect that L-carnitine has on the androgen receptor is it increases its sensitivity, and the genomic effect is it increases the number of these androgen receptors. So if you're a man, it means that the testosterone you produce will be more effective, and if you are someone on hormone replacement therapy who injects testosterone, this will also be more effective than without the L-carnitine. Let's talk about the effect that L-carnitine can have on thyroid hormones. So in the literature, you see that L-carnitine can block the binding of T3 and T4 to their respective receptors on an intracellular level. So if you are someone who has normal blood work regarding your T3, T4, and your TSH, but the effects of your thyroid are lower, so you can observe the effects of hypothyroidism, then it might be something to do with your deiodinase enzyme that is not functioning as effectively as it should. This is not something you can readily test for, but you can increase the activity by supplementing with glutathione or selenium. This is not something you should be greatly concerned of. I've not seen it happen in any of my patients, especially when you're just using the oral supplementation. But just be aware of it so that if you do experience for some reason weird symptoms, you will have like 1 in a billion genetics if this happens to you, then just go and check your thyroid hormones out. So let's go through the list of what L-carnitine does in the body. It modulates the IGF-1 cascade, so it directly increases IGF-1 by modulating binding protein 3. This blunts proteolysis and drives up anabolism by activating mTOR. If you don't know what any of that means, don't worry about it. It just means that you're going to get more muscle. It also has person-dependent neurological cascades. So it increases the ability of the brain to be metabolically flexible. So if your brain needs to burn more sugar for energy, then using L-carnitine, especially acetyl-L-carnitine, will give your brain that ability to adapt to that specific situation. If your brain needs to burn more fat for energy, then the acetyl-L-carnitine will also enable it to do that. It will not do everything all at once, otherwise you would just be a pile of mush laying there on the ground having a seizure or something. It isn't going to do that. So On paper, it does a million different things. For you specifically, it will do mostly what your brain needs at any given time. So if your brain needs to use ketones or glucose, it'll do that. It can modulate serotonin and dopamine in the prefrontal cortex. This is seen in the literature. It also modulates glutamate and GABA. Like I said, it changes on the individual, so it's more seen as a neurological modulator rather than it does this and it does that and it does that. It modulates what you need your brain to do at any given time. Next, ketone production is enhanced if you are on a ketogenic diet. So if you're following a normal diet which has 30% carbohydrates, this will absolutely not make more ketones. However, if you are following a zero carb diet or you're doing carb cycling where you're only consuming carbohydrates every third or every fourth day, then there will be increased ketone production in your body. Coffee will also increase ketone production as a side note, but also only if you're on a ketogenic diet. It shuttles glucose into the muscle away from fat cells by increasing GLUT4 translocase enzymes. Pretty hectic. What it basically means is it keeps your muscles insulin sensitive while making your fat cells insulin resistant. So whether you're exercising or not, it's more pronounced when you're exercising, but you want your fat cells to not absorb the extra sugar that you're taking in from carbohydrates, and you want your muscles to absorb that extra sugar. This is obviously more useful if you're exercising because that's how exercise works. But even if you're not exercising, this will have some sort of effect. For the purposes of my videos, I'm going to assume that all of you watching this are actively exercising. If you're not, what are you doing with your life? Get active. But this is something that will definitely have a positive effect on nutrient partitioning and should help you modulate your diet in such a way that you lose body fat in a healthy way. Then for the mitochondria, like we said earlier, carnitine can clear out those acetyl groups, especially post-workout. The acetyl groups accumulate in the muscle that has been trained, making it insulin insensitive. So if you had a hard leg day, your acetyl groups build up in the leg muscles and they need to be cleared out for the recovery process to start taking place. If this doesn't happen, the mitochondria have to work a hell of a lot harder, and this is going to cause mitochondrial dysfunction, making them inefficient over time. And we've seen in the literature that mitochondrial dysfunction or mitochondrial inefficiency is one of the leading factors in premature aging. Next, let's go to fertility. In male fertility, it increases sperm motility, morphology, and count. It's pretty nice. This is obviously dose dependent. Mostly we've seen this with the injectable preparation of L-carnitine. I don't think you're going to see this with the oral preparation. So if you take the pills or the liquid or the powder, don't expect suddenly your fertility parameters to increase. Even for the females, it improves the oocyte process to construct eggs, so your eggs that you'll produce will be more robust. Again, this is more a case with the injectable preparation, not necessarily with the oral preparation. In terms of performance, it mostly improves your performance by improving the mitochondrial effectivity, and it increases your metabolic flexibility. So if you need to adapt from situations where you're using fat or you're using sugar as an energy source, your body is better adapted at switching faster. So for those of you who've ever had to, it happened to me once I was cycling 50 kilometers. So this took about 2.5 hours. So normally for people exercising for longer than 90 minutes, if you had to run a 15K or cycle a 50 kilometer or anything like that, you will experience what we call hitting the wall. People, this sucks. It feels like you're going to die. You want to empty your mom's whole box of rusks that she baked the day earlier, all 500 of them, you want to eat them right now. It's normal. This is called hypoglycemia. It's how your body changes from metabolizing sugar to metabolizing fat for energy. So by using L-carnitine, this process should be a little bit smoother, and hitting the wall will not feel like you've been struck by Thor's hammer on your forehead just at that very second. Just Captain America's shield, not Thor's hammer. So it increases your VO2 max indirectly, and it also increases the time to exhaustion. So where you would have been kaput after 90 minutes, now maybe you'll get there in 100 minutes or maybe 105 minutes. This is not a magic endurance pill like methylene blue or SLU-PP332. It will increase it slightly, or even GW501516. You will get a baseline improvement, but it's not on WADA's list for a reason. So you're not going to get like a 50% or a 60% increase in cardiovascular capability. If you want to use it to modulate cardiac health, This is a low dose of the injectable L-carnitine. I think the oral L-carnitine is definitely not suitable for this purpose. I'll get into that in a bit later. But if you use the injectable preparation, it chelates heart-specific ions, which improves the dechelation process, which improves acetyl group metabolite removal from the mitochondria of the heart, which we spoke about earlier, is detrimental to the functioning of those mitochondria. And your heart doesn't get a break. It's not like your other muscles where you train them twice a week or 3 times a week for an hour. Your heart keeps going 24/7 non-stop. So the buildup of these groups is really, really important to get rid of so that your heart can keep on functioning as optimally as possible. We'll talk about dosing ranges in a second. Let's talk about the renohepatic benefits of L-carnitine. And you can't do this without, unfortunately, talking about superoxide dismutase. So I guess a lot of you have not even heard about this. Before researching this, I didn't even know what it is. Thanks to Alex Kiekel, now I do know what it is, and it's really important. Basically, L-carnitine increases your EGFR of the kidneys. That's the rate of filtration. Let's talk about how it does that. Superoxide dismutase is an enzyme that plays a crucial role in protecting cells from damage caused by reactive oxygen species or inflammation, specifically superoxide radicals. Increased inflammation means more free radicals, meaning more damage over time. So superoxide dismutase catalyzes the dismutation of superoxide into molecular oxygen and hydrogen peroxide, which are far less harmful. Now, I believe there's a lot more studies and more in-depth information that you can go to on this. I'm not going to do that in this video because it's not relevant. SOD, or superoxide dismutase, decreases as we age. L-carnitine increases SOD, which indirectly improves renal and hepatic function. So this is the application part of the video with regards to the injectable form of L-carnitine. I'm going to talk a lot more about the oral application, which is more accessible and which I have more experience of. Getting injectable L-carnitine where I live is a little bit difficult, and the post-injection pain is absolutely horrendous. So for most of the people I work with, it is not completely relevant to talk about it, but I thought let's just include this in the video for the people who want to know about it. So if you're taking L-carnitine in the injectable form for health purposes, 50 to 100 milligrams, you take it at night. This improves the level of superoxide dismutase, and it improves cardiac health. So if you're a female and you weigh below 90 kilos, then the dosage for you should be about half that of a man. So if a guy takes 50 milligrams, you take 25. If a guy takes 100, you take 50, and the benefits should be quite similar. From about 200 to 250 milligrams, it's more health focused, but you will start seeing athletic improvement. So this is what we call the threshold for athletic improvement dosages. From about 1,000 milligrams, it's a good middle ground dose, so you still get the health benefits with a lot of the athletic performance benefits. Most people don't tolerate more than this anyway. If you get an injectable preparation, the concentration is usually 400 milligrams per ml. So if you're injecting 1,000 milligrams daily, it has to be in the muscle. That's 2.5 mils of this stuff in the muscle with a load of post-injection pain. At some point, you're just going to be over it and you're not going to keep on using it. Then we get to 3,000 milligrams, which is, according to the data, the sweet spot for athletic performance. And some guys even push it as high as 5,000 milligrams. So if you get a 400 milligram per ml preparation, then if my maths is correct, that should be 12.5 milliliters of injection depot every single day. It sounds preposterous, but the performance is apparently worth it. I haven't tried that much. I doubt I will ever try that much in my life. But apparently it is legal all over the world. It's not on any of WADA's doping lists, no matter what preparation you use. So whether it's oral or even the nasal spray, whatever, the injectable, everything is legal. It's legal to buy off the counter. You will not test positive if you are a drug-tested athlete. I don't think using that much of the injectable is worth it. For some people it is. If you're a professional bodybuilder or you are a hardcore Olympic athlete, this might be worth it for you. But for most people, if you do go the injection route, anywhere between 50 milligrams and 800 should net you most of the benefits without the drawbacks of the severe post-injection pain. An important distinction to make between taking L-carnitine with an injectable route and orally is the buildup of trimethylamine N oxide, or TMAO for short. So if you take it with the injectable route, there will be no buildup of TMAO. If you take it orally, there will be a buildup of this thing. It is very toxic for the heart, and it is a natural buildup that occurs in the gut anyway. because our bodies produce L-carnitine endogenously. However, if you supplement with it orally, there will be much more of a buildup. So just to finish off on the injectable route first, there is no worry with TMAO. You don't need to supplement with allucin or with choline to metabolize the TMAO and get it out of your system. No need to worry about that. TMAO can lead to a fishy body odor, like your sweat or other parts that I'm not going to mention on YouTube. But if you do get that fishy body odor, please discontinue the use immediately, because it means your body is producing TMAO at a significantly faster rate than it should. So that's either something wrong with your gut, or your body just doesn't tolerate supraphysiological amounts of L-carnitine well. So please, if you get the fishy body odor, stop immediately. The supplement is not worth it for you. Let's go to the different dosages for fertility as well. I would like to talk about that. For males and for females, taking between 250 and 500 milligrams of the injectable preparation daily should have the positive effects on the fertility parameters. With all of these different dosages, it depends on person to person. I'm sure from school, all of you remember the bell curve, where this shifts on the graph depending on how you metabolize it. So you might get the best performance at 400 milligrams. Another guy might get the same results at 4,000. Each of us is unique in that regard, so you've got to find where your top point on the bell curve is with regards to results and tolerance, so that you can find the sweet spot for what you want to achieve by using the supplement. Let's get into the more nitty-gritty detail of what the science says regarding the scientific literature regarding the oral preparation. So the mechanism of action that I was taught when I was learning about this was that it activates the PPAR delta receptor in the nucleus of the mitochondria, which is a nuclear receptor that upregulates fat burning genes. This is it's a peroxisome proliferator alpha receptor delta. I think it's a delta symbol. It is to a lesser extent than something like cardarine or GW50156 would. So again, people, modest effect, 5% fat loss at most. If you're using the injectable, the oral might be even less. If you use the cycling protocol that I'm going to recommend, then it should be a little bit more than what the research says, but it is modest. This thing is not going to melt fat off of you. Your body is not going to look like you were prepping for a bodybuilding show for 3 weeks. It's completely over-the-counter level stuff. So does it work? Yes, but it's not magic. Nothing is, barring probably pharmaceutical-grade growth hormone, but that's not the topic of this video. It has positive effects on blood lipids and glucose. So a meta-analysis in 2018 found that 3 grams a day of L-carnitine reduced the bad cholesterol by 10%, triglycerides by 15%, and increased the good cholesterol by 5%. For anybody who knows me and who's spoken to me about this topic of cholesterol already know that this is terms I despise using. I'll make a video about it one day, but to satisfy the general medical community, it has positive effects on lipid parameters. It also improves insulin sensitivity by up to 20%. In some studies, 2 grams a day for 12 weeks have shown increases by 10%. I think it's a little bit more if you keep on using it for short bursts and cycling off for short bursts, because then you're keeping the sensitivity quite high and you're not metabolizing or converting to TMAO in such a dramatic fashion by using it for chronic periods of time. There is a very important warning that people who are on blood thinners, even aspirin, need to understand. L-carnitine competes with vitamin K-dependent clotting factors, which, especially if you use it with blood thinners, you are going to have a dramatically increased risk of bleeding. So if you're on warfarin, don't use this. Just don't even think about it. Your risk is way, way, way too high, and it does not outweigh the benefits. Aspirin, I'm using aspirin right now while taking L-carnitine at the same time. I've not had any bad experiences, no additional bruises, but then again, it's just me. For you, it might be different, and it also depends on your dose of aspirin. So with aspirin, it shouldn't be an issue, but you should just be aware of it, that using it with any form of blood thinners can lead to some serious deleterious effects. So when we talk about the oral application route, I refer to the capsules mostly. When I started using it the first time in 2019, I used a powder from TNT Mercury. I remember it was the most horrible tasting supplement I ever used in my life. but it was incredibly effective. I think it was something like orange flavor, but it just tasted like rotten fruit that somebody left on the field for 3 months. It was disgusting. I also took it fasting, which was a pretty big mistake. So it made me really nauseous. I had appetite suppression all day long. It was not a very smart way to use it. So using the powder and using a liquid form is a little bit less stable than just using the capsules, because you're going to get gastric emptying a little bit quicker. So that's a reflex that the body has when you get a large amount of L-carnitine into the stomach, is it evacuates. So you need to be aware that diarrhea can be a side effect if you take it on an empty stomach specifically. If you want to avoid that, just take it with a meal with some carbohydrates, not like a whole loaf of bread, just a few slices, and your absorption should be significantly better and you won't get the diarrhea side effect. The dosages I've been playing around with are between 600 and 1,200 milligrams daily of L-carnitine L-tartrate. I am going to try the Acetyl-L-Carnitine. I've used it in the past before at anything between 500 and 1,000 milligrams a day. I found that there's no massive difference between the two except the price. The Acetyl-L-Carnitine tends to be about double the price of the L-Carnitine L-Tartrate, which is the more commonly available one anyway. What we've been trialing with a lot of my patients and with myself as well is we were using it for 2 weeks daily, and then cycling off for 2 weeks, and then getting back on for 2 weeks. So in the years I've been using this, all the people we've been working with, anything longer than the 2 weeks, and the fat loss response has been significantly blunted past, I would say, day 15, 16. Even the last day 11, 12, 13, 14, you still get less fat loss than you would day 1, 2, 3, and 4. So it would seem that the quicker or the shorter your cycle and your duration of exposure is, the more acute fat loss you will experience. And the idea is you want to reset those receptors, whatever they are, as quickly as possible so that you can get the fat loss again. I believe that the interaction intracellularly in the mitochondria between the injectable and the oral L-carnitine is significantly different, because in the literature, if you look at the injectable, it works constantly as long as you use it, whereas with the oral, you get basically no fat loss after 4 weeks or even after 8 weeks. So the longest I've been on at one time is 8 weeks. I've had patients who used it concurrently for 3 months, and the last, I would say at least 2 months, they experienced no results and it felt like they were wasting their money. So we shortened and truncated the protocol, and every single person we've worked with so far has had some measure of result by using the 2-week protocol. The science says you can make it 3 weeks or 3 weeks off, 3 weeks on, 1 week off. I don't agree with that at all. I would rather say figure out what works best for you, but the shorter your exposure could be while still maintaining the fat loss, the better. You can even do 1 week on, 1 week off if that works best for you. But so far, I prefer the 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off. Maybe with Acetyl-L-Carnitine, it'll work a little bit better. I will post an update comment once I've tried that. An important note that I want to put out there is if you use 3,000 milligrams of allicin, which is found in garlic, then the build-up to TMAO will almost be completely negated, and that's apart from just supplementing with choline. So I hope you don't eat them, but just swallow 3 or 4 garlic cloves daily. If you can manage to stay around people and not have them get mad at you, then you can probably tolerate using the L-carnitine for a little bit longer. It's not practical, but it is a way to offset the TMAO. If you really want to use this and you are one of the unlucky people who smells like Walvis Bay's Lagoon, then you probably need to try the garlic thing and might actually be an improvement. The other thing is you do get it in a liquid preparation as well. I've tried the liquids. I don't think they work that well. It is a little bit more unstable, and you do get more of the diarrhea side effects with them as well. A lot of my patients who use them had similar type of effects. And you get all sorts of other weird preparations like eye drops, nasal spray. Like I can't imagine having to drop that stuff in my eyes. I think it's going to burn quite hectic. So the moral of the story is you can get this into your system in many different ways. The cheapest and most practical are the pills. Usually L-carnitine L-tartrate, if you really want to just turn the bottle around and you can see what form the L-carnitine is in. Then you can decide what dosage you can handle. Almost all of my patients do not tolerate more than 1.5 grams a day well. Then the diarrhea just skyrockets and they have it the whole day instead of just first thing when they take it with food or on an empty stomach. Another thing we've experienced is if people take it after lunch or like quite late in the day, like towards 4 or 5 p.m., then it can interrupt their sleep quite a bit because people tend to feel energetic on this. It's almost like a pre-workout minus the 4 Red Bulls type of effect that you get. So you do get a little bit of that extra energy, and for some people it doesn't burn off until far into the morning, which I find quite impractical for most of us. You need your sleep, and I think it's safer to take your dosage with breakfast or with your first meal of the day and use it primarily on training days if you want to do it like that, or 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off, and see how that works for you. Another bonus side effect of this is L-carnitine makes your hair and your nails grow significantly faster, and it should improve the quality of your skin as well. So I remember the first time I used it, I had a routine where about every 10 days I had to clip my nails. And the first time I used L-carnitine, that routine was completely thrown out the window, and I was wholly unprepared, and my nails were, it looked like I had fake nails on, like they grew so fast and they were so hard and strong. And I was confused, man. Like, it wasn't something I was prepared for. Nobody told me about this. My hair was growing fast. My hairdresser saw me every 3 weeks instead of every 6 weeks. My whole schedule was completely thrown upside down. And it turned out the damn L-carnitine was the cause, and I didn't know. So if that's the type of thing that you want to use it for in conjunction with something like a biotin or whatever else the ladies want to use to make their hair grow fast, go for it. But it is a very welcome side effect for those who need it. There we go, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you enjoyed my deep dive / quick overview of L-carnitine, the potential benefits it can have for you, the context that you should look at using it in, and if you learned something, let me know in the comments. If you have any questions, also let me know in the comments, and I will see you in the next one. Remember to like and subscribe, and check you later.